I'm Ben Pugh, and you're listening to Impact Parenting with Perspective. This podcast is all about helping parents manage the mental and emotional drama that comes with parenting teens so they can focus on what's most important, building rock-solid relationships and having a powerful impact on their teen's life. Join me each week as I dive into real tools to help you and your teen turn struggles into strengths. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, as promised, I've got Courtney back with me. And as promised, we are going to talk about the most recent fan mail that we got. Before we do that, though, I want to just remind you guys, I cannot reach out to you based on the information that I get from fan mail. I get your name, the town that you live in, which isn't very accurate, and it gives me like the last 4 digits of your phone number. That's not enough to reach out to you. If you leave me fan mail and you would like me to reach out to you personally and offer you a free coaching call or anything, you also have to email me. Ben@BenPughCoaching is my email address. And from there, I can reply back to you. If you would like, you could just go to benpughcoaching.com/mini and you could hop on a free consultation with me. I'm not saying don't do fan mail because I do want you to. And I've had people tell me, oh man, that helped me when you and Courtney talked about that one thing. So keep sending the fan mail. But if you want more personal help from me, also reach out to me. You can either email me at Ben@BenPughCoaching or go sign up to Ben@BenPughCoaching. Wait, no, yes, you're right. When people give me their email address and it's Gmail and they're like at gmail.com, everyone knows it's .com, but maybe that's not the case for Ben@BenPughCoaching.com. And I'd be happy to help you. So if you want me to reach out, you got to give me more information than just fan mail. So, Courtney, did I explain that well enough?
I hope so. If not, hopefully someone will send you some fan mail and say, can you please clarify? Because you made no sense.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I could also give you Courtney's phone number so that you could just text her at your leisure with any question that you ever might have. Okay, I will not do that to you.
Yeah. I question if you actually have my phone number, because when I sent fan mail, you have my town, my state, and the last 4 digits of my phone number, and you still didn't know it was me.
Hey, I am not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm just the best looking one. Okay, maybe not even that.
Well, you can't have it all.
Okay, so anyways, today's fan mail, I'm just going to read it. It's awesome. I won't say where you're from. Oh, but you say where you're from. Well, anyways, hi, my name is Jodi. I'm a therapist in Southern Nevada. I listen to your podcast often and feel like you may be able to give some perspective and advice on a situation I have with a niece whose son is 13 and he is struggling. He's been diagnosed with ADHD and ODD. Funny thing, I was told I had both of those, by the way, and I turned out fine. I don't know the whole story, but I do know he's been recently expelled from school and is out of control. She is ready to send him to a troubled youth camp. The data on those, by the way, is just terrible. Troubled youth camps, residential treatment facilities. In my opinion, the risk is not worth the small chance of a reward. Anyways, we can talk more on that later. Anyways, she could really use some advice. If you want to reach out to me, I would love to connect her with you. Guess what? I can't reach out to you. I don't have enough of your information. But let's talk about a couple of things. Number one, Courtney has never heard the story of me lighting a school bus on fire. And I told her.
It's been mentioned, but I don't have details.
What details are you missing?
I don't know how the flame ignited. All I knew is like rubber cement was involved, a school bus, and Ben Pugh. That's all I had.
Yeah. Well, to protect the names of my buddies that have probably gotten past this by now, and apparently I haven't, I won't mention their names, but one of my friends stole some rubber cement. And he's like, bro, will you keep this in your backpack for me? And I knew he had stolen it, but I agreed to keep it in my backpack and I was going to give it to him later that day on the bus. So I felt guilty all day long. And we finally get on the bus. We couldn't exchange the rubber cement because there are too many good kids sitting around us. So, like, towards the end of the bus ride home, when there's just a few kids left on the bus, all the good nerdy kids in the front, us dumb knuckleheads in the back. And that's when he's like, bro, can I have my rubber cement back? So I'm pulling it out. And I was a seventh grader. And I think my friend who stole it was also a seventh grader. And we were hanging out with this cool ninth grader who was like, dude, I have a lighter. Let's see what happens. And so I'm not 100% sure who was holding the rubber cement and who opened it, but it got opened. My buddy, the ninth grader with the lighter, lit it. And when we lit it, the bottle of rubber cement, like you could hear an audible, like, like it just ignited instantly. And we're all like, oh crap, like put the lid back on, put the lid back on. And we couldn't get the lid back on straight. And I'm like, I'm just going to throw this thing out the window. I missed the open window and I
Oh,
hit the little bar in between open windows. Like, honestly, worst throw ever. And it sent flaming rubber cement all over the back of the bus,
oh,
which the ninth grader, because he was older and he's the one who lit it, he got safe schooled or expelled, which they could do for up to a full calendar year. I believe he got a full calendar year. My other friend who had stolen it, he was a troublemaker. And so he got suspended for like multiple weeks. I was like the dumbest and the most innocent. I was like the lovable idiot that they're like, oh. And I was in special ed at the time. I believe I was in special ed. We used to call it resource. I don't know. Seriously, you're laughing at a special kid now.
no, no, it's just the whole story. It has nothing to do with your classes that you took in seventh grade. I would never judge ever. I honestly wouldn't.
They called it resource back then, and it just made you feel like an idiot. But anyways, because of those circumstances, I only got suspended for a week, maybe two. I can't remember. But I'll tell you this, my parents did not handle that very well. I remember my mom, like, I feel so bad for my mom. I was the oldest, like, she had no idea what she's doing. And she's just like scared to death. She's like, Ben, I only knew two kids who ever got suspended. One's in jail and the other's dead. Like, that's what your outlook is. Like, I can't remember how she said it, but I remember one was dead and one was in jail. And I was like, great, jail someday. Fast forward lots of years. When I was a high school principal, we caught a kid smoking weed in the bathroom. I don't know why you'd want to do anything in the bathroom other than go to the bathroom, but at the school I was a principal at, that's where people chose to like sell drugs, smoke weed, have sex. Like, I'm like, seriously, guys, this is like the dirtiest place in the whole school. This is where you want to do this? Anyway, so we caught a kid smoking weed. I had to call his dad in, and we're going to suspend this kid. And the dad was just livid, and he was a huge mountain of a man. And I had been a principal probably for a year and a half at this point. And I'm like telling the dad, like, dude, we're going to have to suspend your kid because he's smoking weed in the school. And his dad is just so pissed off. He's like, yeah, we're going to deal with this at home. And I'm like worried that this kid is going to get his butt whooped at home. And I was like, time out, dude. I was suspended when I was a kid. and I told the whole lighting your school bus on fire story, and this was, like, the first time I had ever been brave enough to mention it. Before, I was like, "Man, what if someone finds out that I did that as a kid and they won't let me be principal anymore?" Anyways, the dad went from, like, literally being on the verge of killing his own child to laughing, and he's sitting next to his child, and he elbows him, and he's like, "Dude, at least you didn't light the bathroom on fire." Like, just it completely changed the mood, and I feel like part of that was this dad realizing, "Oh, this principal was a freaking knucklehead as a teenager, and he's turned out okay. If my kid smokes weed in school, obviously that's not what I want, but there's a chance that he can turn out okay too." And the funny thing was, like, the dad was like, "Hey, at least you didn't light the bathroom on fire." The next thing he said was, "Maybe you'll grow up to be a principal someday." It helps change the perspective. And one of the things that I would tell you about this, when kids get expelled from school, the lens through which we view that is like, "Oh no, something's gone wrong. You're a bad kid." And I think we need to change that lens. Like, if this kid, I have no idea what he did, but getting expelled from school is typically severe enough that suspension doesn't work anymore. You're out of school for a long time. I would be very curious what is going on with this young man. What are his thoughts about himself? What are his thoughts about, like, his self-worth? I can tell you the whole school bus lighting thing, if I'd have had better self-worth, that would have never happened. I was just trying to fit in, going along with the herd. And these are some things that I feel like if I were to work with him, these would be like priority number one. What's going on in your mind? How do you think about yourself? How do you feel about yourself? What are some of the habits that you've got going on? Those are all things that I can help you with. Courtney, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. I mean, I have a kind of a similar story. Um, Once I left high school, I went to beauty school and I went to advanced training to specialize in color. And they had a rule there. It was like a 6-month school. And they're like, if you don't show up or call by 9 o'clock, you're dropped from the program. Like, no questions asked. You're just done. Well, one morning I woke up at 9:14 and I called and they're like, well, come on in. So I went in and they dropped me. And they're like, listen, you're a great student. We love to have you back, but it's the rule. So, like, in 6 months, if you want to come back, you're welcome to. That was the most devastating thing for me at that time, but it also taught me a huge lesson. And I did go back and I did graduate and I was successful in the salon and did great. Um, but it just made me realize, like, I just buckled down. Like, I feel like I had to hit that bottom to really appreciate where I went. And maybe this young man getting expelled from school will be a lesson, but with having support, without having someone continue to tell him how bad he is, or their fears. I don't know, but I mean, look how great I turned out.
I
You lit
know.
a school bus on fire and were suspended. I was dropped from a specialized school for hair, and look, here we are.
Yeah, take it from a couple of knuckleheads. This kid's
Yeah.
race is not yet run. Here's something that I would add. Gosh, these are unpopular opinions. ADHD is uh, it, it's a hard one. There's kids with actual ADHD, and there's kids that get labeled really early on as having ADHD. And oftentimes, rather than learning the skills necessary to handle that, we go the drug route, or we go, I can't remember what it's called, but where they take you out of the main class. Back when I was a kid, they called it resource, and you just felt stupid for going to resource. But I we don't do a great job of teaching kids who struggle with ADHD alternative tools. Like, I remember my mom asking me, like, "Ben, what the crap is wrong with you? Like, seriously, how can you make dumb choice after dumb choice?" I remember seriously thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to be a good kid. I'm trying to follow the rules. And for some reason, I slip up and I get in trouble. Kids with ADHD, we'll talk about ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, in a minute, because I have a special kind of dislike for that diagnosis. But ADHD, we are not teaching kids the tools that they need to manage that. And far too often, we're relying on things outside of the teenager's control to help them. And man, there's so many things outside of that teen's control. Like, we don't know about the home life. We don't know. I had a kid that would freaking bounce off the walls, and they're like, yeah, this kid has ADHD. Like, good luck with him. I had him for 2 years, and he started getting super bad acne. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, dude, you are allergic to this and this and this and this. He cut out certain dyes, and he cut out something else in his diet, and this was like a whole new kid. And they were just trying to like figure out, why is his acne so bad, and they inadvertently cured his ADHD because they cut out foods that he was having allergic reactions to. Anyway, so there are things that we don't know. And the first thing that I'd be like, dude, if you have ADHD, you can't go through life using this as an excuse or using
Mhm.
it as an anchor to weigh you down. You're the one struggling with this. You've got to be the one to try new things out, to figure out how to manage that. Anything you want to add to that, Courtney?
Yeah. So I have ADHD. I have some, like I was diagnosed when I was 19. Um, and fun fact, like I didn't even graduate high school. I went through maybe half of my sophomore year. I was just over it. I went and took my GED and I passed with flying colors. And my grandmother always said, "You were just too smart. You already knew everything." And I was like, "Yeah, we'll go with that." But really, I just didn't like school. It wasn't for me. I couldn't focus. I like it was just horrible. But I feel like I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I think that
Oh,
you were going in the direction of, you had to kind of figure out your own way and make it work for you.
yeah. And it's good for parents to also realize like what are some of the there's child symptoms of ADHD. So I'm not hyperactive. My brain is like the one that has 12 squirrels running in it at any given time. Um, but like being forgetful or not finishing something, like sometimes give your kids grace and understand, especially if they have been diagnosed with ADHD. Like it's they're not doing it intentionally. I forget to text people back after a week or two, and it's not intentional. It's just like that object permanence. It's not right in front of me. Like I can only focus on one thing at a time to completion if I'm going to finish something.
Yeah.
And I like when we're punishing kids for, oh, well, you didn't do this and you should know better. You know, you do this, you have to do this every week. Why don't you just do it? Well, it, it's not that they're being defiant. Like maybe their brain is just not telling them, reminding them that they have to do it. There's so many other things going on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And let's talk about ODD, or oppositional defiance, for a minute. Oppositional defiance disorder. I was like, what's the second D for? But, anyways, ODD, I've talked to multiple doctors. Like, I am not a doctor. I have a lot of friends that are doctors. I talk with a lot of therapists, and most of them, when I've talked to them about ODD, this is how nerdy I am. I'm like, what's your opinion on ODD? Most of them are like, it's a garbage diagnosis. Like, there's usually more to the story. It's far too broad. Like, I had a free consultation, guys. If you're listening, I love you. I'm sorry that you are one of my examples, but they're like, man, our daughter has ODD, ADHD, all the same stuff. And they're like, man, she's a fantastic musician. Like, she plays all these instruments, like 5 of them. I didn't know people could play that many. I thought you just picked one, got really good at it, but apparently you can pick 5. Anyways, she like plays these instruments. She does okay in school. She's really smart. She gets it, but she forgets to turn her homework in. And sometimes her parents will ask her to do stuff and she'll refuse, and she'll actually argue and yell at them and call names. And I'm like, guys, this is an ODD. Like, you're dealing with a teenager who thinks she's smarter than her parents. That's normal.
Mhm.
Like, if your teen doesn't think they're smarter than you got a problem. You got to work on that, because teens are wired to think they're smarter than their parents. The thing about when I talk to them and we're talking about boundaries and stuff, the parents just had different values than the daughter. And when we were talking about setting boundaries and identifying some of the values, I was like, you guys could totally, like, one of the coolest things, she hates touching dirty dishes. She's like, I don't want to load the dishwasher. I don't want to touch dirty dishes. I don't want to touch other people's nasty germs on those dirty dishes. And I was like, man, is there something you would be willing to do instead of washing, like doing the dishes? And she's like, I'll clean the bathroom every week, which in my mind is crazy, because I'm like, the bathroom is way more disgusting than touching dirty dishes, but not for
Mhm.
her. She's like, if I can get out of the dishes every day, I will clean all the bathrooms in the house once a week and make sure they're nice and clean. And I'm like, in my house, we would have a deal. Like, I'd be reaching out my hand, being like, deal, no take backs. And the parents are like, yeah, but she needs to learn how to do dishes. And I'm like, why? Like, no, just let her keep the bathroom clean. That's awesome. And just,
Yeah.
you never have to clean the bathrooms and she never has to do the dishes. Rather than, I feel like too many times with kids that get diagnosed with ODD, they're told they have a problem. They're the problem. You got to learn how to operate inside of this box, inside of these boundaries. And I feel like one of the things, so I've worked with lots of teens with ODD, and whenever possible, I also work with their parents. When you can figure out how to create boundaries that work for both parties. Like, this family was like, oh, so we don't have to make her do dishes to be good parents. I'm like, no, that's like the stupidest old parenting myth that we can't let go of. Like, she can never do a dish in her life and still be okay. Especially like right now, the currency is, hey, I'll trade washing of the bathrooms and the toilets for this. In the future, she's gonna like have a job somewhere and she'll be like, oh, I can pay you to come clean my bathrooms. Yeah, problem solved. We don't need to make it a problem now. Anyways, I could go on and on about ODD. Guys, if you have a teen diagnosed with ODD, before you go the medication route, before you do, like, they have some good occupational therapies right now, but you could start in your own home with a brand new discussion about boundaries and what your teen thinks would be fair, and start working more from their angle as opposed to what most adults do, which is work from just their angle. Like, I'm the parent, do it my way. Find
Mhm.
ways to empower your teen. Courtney, I just spoke a lot for a long time. What you thinking?
Um, no, I agree. I also think when we put labels on our teens, and like you said, we make them the problem. It's like, oh, you have ODD. For us as parents, we are looking at them through that lens, and we are expecting all of their behaviors to be oppositional or defiant. And then the teen, why wouldn't they want to react that way? If someone had labeled us, so like if we have an interaction with someone at a doctor's office and they have us labeled as, a difficult patient or something, we're going to go in there knowing that they feel that way and we're going to act different. At least I would. If I feel like someone has already labeled me, how can I? So it's tough when you have a label on you, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Do Have you ever read the book Leadership and Self-Deception?
Have I read the book Leadership and Self-Deception? It's on my top 2.
So Courtney wouldn't read it forever, and then she did read it, and it freaking changed your life. But do you remember the part of the book where, you're so much better at this part, you actually remember the characters' names? I just remember the story around it. But the old guy who sent his kid to a wilderness camp, basically towards the
Was
end of
it Bud?
the, probably Bud,
Oh wait. No.
and he talks about how he sent his kid to a wilderness camp. And at the wilderness camp, they're like, look, all you parents, you got to come learn this. And basically they pulled the rug out from under him and they're like, you have the problem. You can't
Mhm.
control your teen. You got to fix you. Anyways, they dropped the kid off at this wilderness camp. It worked in the book, but the dad, Bud, I believe his name was, he realized I'm the problem. I need to change. And when they went and picked their kid up from this camp, he was like, I'm so sorry as the adult. The thing about wilderness camp, or what did you call it here? Um, Troubled youth camp, it puts the focus on something outside of your control. You can't control the camp. You can't control your teenager. You can't control anything. Plus, my other problem with that is it puts your teen out of your direct contact. When you can really explore, what can I control? What can I change about me? How can I be the change that I want to see? One of the things that I've seen happen multiple times is that takes so much of the pressure off of the teen. Because we live in a world that when teens get expelled, like we blame the teen, like, this is all your fault. What's wrong with you? And there's a fine line between blame and responsibility. Like, I want to empower this teen to be responsible for his mistakes, what he did wrong, how he got himself expelled. I want him to be responsible for all of that. But as a parent, I also want to be responsible for what I can change. Like, man, you know what? We haven't had great boundaries in this home, and that's on me. So starting today, we're going to have a discussion on boundaries. You know what? I haven't been very, oh, what's the word I'm looking? I haven't like given you praise. I haven't complimented you. I haven't noticed the good things that you're doing, and I've been super critical. I focused on everything you made done wrong. That's something I can change. And by the way, if you're dealing with kids at trauma or that have had trauma, like they say normal kids, as if anyone's normal in this world, but they say normal kids like 4 to 1. Like if you give one piece of criticism, you should try and give them four compliments or for praise or attaboys. And they're like, if you're dealing with kids with trauma, so back when I was a foster parent, they're like, if your kid is in the foster system, that in and of itself is traumatic. They've dealt with trauma. You need to be looking at 17 positive interactions to every one negative. If this kid is getting expelled, I guarantee you he has had more than his fair share of negative interactions with adults, whether it be you as parents, which I'm not throwing you under the bus here. Like, I'm not perfect. I have negative interactions with my kids.
Mhm.
But if you can then kind of mentally try and keep a tally and realize, man, I'm having more negative interactions than I am positive. Yes, it would be great if we could get to 17 to 1. But if right now you're at two negatives for every one positive, man, you could flip that to two positives for every one negative, and that in and of itself would be better.
Yeah,
Totally
and
go on.
not focusing on all the negatives all the time. Not everything needs correction.
Yeah,
I feel like I've learned through, yeah, not everything needs correction, and we're so quick to point out, and myself included, point out all the things that they might do wrong or don't do, you
yeah,
know. Um, Sometimes just let it be. They're not intentionally being little jerks all the time.
yeah.
They're really not.
And here's two things with like my principal hat on. Number one, when I was a principal, I did everything in my power not to expel kids. In Utah, we have the law based on certain things. You can what's called safe school a kid for up to a calendar year. In Utah, administrators use that as an excuse to get a tough kid out of their school for a full calendar year. And we had a kid, man, it was actually pretty serious. I brought a gun to school on accident, so he says, but didn't use it. It was in his backpack. And I had to safe school that kid because that was a safe school violation. I had him out of the school for, I think, 10 days. And the state of Utah called me up and they're like, hey, you can't let him come back to school. It hasn't been a full calendar year. And I'm like, oh, I read it and it says up to a calendar year. What does that mean? And they're like, oh, well, that's to protect the kid. You can't expel them for over a year. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So up to means I can't go over a year, but what's the minimum here? And they're like, there is no minimum. I'm like, exactly. So he's going to be out of the school. Actually, I think I had him out of school suspended for 5 days and in school suspended for 5 days. And Courtney, when a kid gets in school suspension at my school, guess who they had to hang out with all day, every day?
Principal Pugh.
Principal Pugh. And they loved it. Actually, they usually hated it, but like it was the best thing that I could do. Like half the kids would get suspended because they didn't want to go to school anyways. They wanted to go home and smoke pot. I'm like, no, I don't want you out of school. I don't care if you got in a fight with what's his bucket. I'm going to keep you guys separated and I'm going to alternate back and forth who gets to hang out with me and we're going to spend time together. The thing I'll say about expulsions and suspensions in school, with all the information that we have about behavior modification, behavior management, why are suspensions and expulsions continuing to go up year after year after year? It's because people don't want to deal with them. It's a knee jerk reaction to just expel kids and kick them out of school. I think we need to call administrators out. There's actually FERPA laws and other laws to protect your kids saying that they deserve an education. And we got to quit giving administrators a free pass when they kick a kid out of school. We need to be asking, like, well, you are still legally responsible for providing an education for this kid. So what are you going to do? Make them responsible, because in my case, I learned pretty quickly it is way easier for me to keep them in school. I know what I'm good at, which is creating relationships. If this kid is struggling in school, it's probably because he's struggling with relationships. Rather than provide his education outside of the school, it's easier for me to keep him in school and connect with him there and help him there. Most schools don't think that way. And I forgot the second thing I was going to talk about. Courtney, bail me out. I know you got something right on the tip of your tongue.
I was just thinking while you're talking about that, I partially agree with that. But I also think there needs to be accountability at home. I see so many kids get shipped off to school, and these teachers and administrators are left to deal with it. But then there's no responsibility from home,
Yeah.
which is, and I told my son's teacher last night, I was like, bless your heart, because I was only blessed with enough patience to barely manage my own children. I can't imagine managing a whole classroom full of kids. Like there needs to be support from home too. And if there's not that, what else is school left to do?
Yeah. Okay.
But
Oh,
if
I love,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
I love that you brought that up. What else is the school supposed to do? You know my teach art of control teaching, right?
Yes,
There's two sides, what I can control, what I cannot control.
correct.
Support from home. Which side of that T chart does that fall in?
If you're the school,
Yeah.
that's the side you cannot control.
Yeah. So I 100% agree with you. We would, when I suspended a kid, I would make part of the kid's reentry into the school be that the parents had to come spend a day in school with their kid, which I get you can't do everywhere. On the tribe, if they work for the tribe, they could spend a day in the school and still get paid. Anyways, we were able to work out some cool things. I had to get creative and find what I could control. But as much as I agree with you, we need more support from home. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But
It's
if you're listening to this podcast, you might be one who could start asking yourself, what could I do to offer more support as a parent? And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow the first time you ask yourself that, but it's empowering to you and your teenager.
Well, it probably has a lot to do with why they're acting out at school is what's, you know, going
Yeah.
on at home.
Do you know that I feel like I'm like evidence against that. Like, I remember people telling me, like, Ben, you have good parents, you have a good home life. Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know.
I think you were just like a big puppy. You were just a big goofball, and like nothing you did was malicious or, intended to be bad, right? You were
Yeah,
just
well, I
kind of,
did punch a kid in the face once because he would
well,
not stop picking on me. And that
well,
kid,
then he deserves it.
yeah. We'll talk about bullying another day because I could go on about that. Here's something. So, if this is you or if any of this sounds familiar, I would give you some homework. Number one, go read a book. It's called Leadership and Self Deception. It will
Mhm.
help you shift your focus from this teenager who, according to the school and the world, kind of looks like the problem. And it will help you shift your focus from this teenager who's outside of your control back to yourself. The other thing that I would do, and man, this is going to make some people cringe, I would be really clear. I don't think being expelled is the worst thing ever. Like, I would have a real honest conversation. Like, dude, if you're not going to go to school, which you're responsible for that, you made it so that you can't go to school. What's your plan now? And I would have that discussion. I had a kid, man, he dropped out of school. I wasn't supposed to allow him to drop out of school, but man, he needed it. He was a pain in the butt. We got him out. He's like, well, I'm going to go work for my dad in the oil field. I'm going to make all this money. We're like, yeah, go do it, dude. He was gone the last few months of school, all of summer. And man, when school was ready to start back up, he's like, please, can I come back to school? I never want to do that job in the oil field again. In fact, now I know the education I want to do so that I can have the job that's over that job. Like, that was exactly what he needed. And if you handle this to the best of your ability, and if you find ways to empower your teenager, I promise you, this will be an experience that was exactly what he needed to figure his crap out.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the most challenging things I've gone through have been my biggest lessons. I will say about the book, Leadership and Self Deception, when you first start listening to it, don't take offense because Ben told me about 5 or 6 times to read it. And I was like, no, no. When I finally did, I was like, why the heck did he tell me to read this? This is basically telling me that everything I'm doing is wrong. Like it's all my fault. And I was a little butthurt, but I continued to listen to it and I eventually bought it, but I continued to listen to it. And it's a great book. Like you just have to get over yourself and get past the first part. And it makes you feel so much better. I don't know. I feel like I should listen to it once a month just as a refresher.
I listen to it at least 2 or 3 times a year. I probably haven't listened to it yet this year. We should maybe listen to it. Have you ever listened to The Go Giver?
No.
That's another good one. Um, let's. This podcast has gone just a little bit long. Let me just give you this. Human beings have a fundamental need for connection. And there are some studies on this. I am not a scientist or a studier. We already established I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But I do know that there is scientific data and there are studies that talk about oh, the prison pipeline and how when you suspend kids, you're basically isolating them from society, and that makes the problem even worse, which increases their likelihood of going to prison. Anyways, to talk about like how this affects like minorities even worse. But the thing is, the way that we handle people who make mistakes in our society is to isolate them and just ignore them. And there's a lot of study to back up that what these kids need, rather than being kicked out of the population, they need to be more included in the population. And one of the things that I would do as principal to get people back into school, we'd put them under contract. And one of the things that I would always include in the contract is like, oh, you like basketball? You got to go be on the basketball team. We didn't have cuts in this school. Like, we didn't have enough kids. Some kids were into clubs, and I'd be like, yeah, you got to be actively participating in this club. Rather than ostracizing them, we need to be enveloping them. We need to help them make more connections, not less connections. And so if your kid has been expelled, like, you probably can't undo that. I would be happy to hop on a phone call and talk about how stupid suspensions and expulsions are, but it probably won't help you. Just see your kid where they're at and really start exploring how can we help him build more relationships and more connections. I guarantee you there's a church in your community, or scouts, or clubs, or freaking acting play stuff. When I got in trouble one time, oh my goodness, I was in so much trouble. I couldn't do anything. And my parents were like, you know what? You can go be in a play with your brothers. I'm like, I'm not going to be in a play. Do I look like a loser? After another week or so of not hanging out with anyone, I was like, can I go be a part of the play? That was one of the best experiences ever. I'm out there like singing and dancing, and I would have never done that. And what was funny, like, my football buddies that went and saw the play, they're all making fun of me. And I'm like, dude, you're the one who goes and watches plays. Like, seriously, you're going to make fun of me for being in one? But anyways, we could go on forever. Help your teen make more meaningful relationships, and really, it might be hard. Like, don't just settle for like video games and virtual stuff. Get them into something real, face-to-face contact, real connection. Courtney, anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Nope, that was great.
Okay. I think you're awesome, Courtney. Thank you for
Thank
being on
you.
the podcast with me.
Yeah, I love it. I enjoy it.
Well, I think you're fantastic. So keep coming and helping me.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, guys, we're going to let you go. Just to get you excited for the future, I have another life coach. She and I have been coaching each other for, I think, 4 or 5, or maybe even longer, but 4 or 5 years. We're going to do a podcast swap soon, and we're going to talk about some awesome, deep stuff. Also, we're going to talk about bullying. Courtney, are you down if we talk about bullying in the next future?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
next future. Yeah,
Or in the
absolutely.
near future is what I meant to say. Courtney bullies me all the time.
You're sensitive. Oh.
Anyways, so keep listening, guys. We love having you here. Keep giving us fan mail. We will answer everything that we can. And just remember, if you send fan mail and you want us to reach out to you, also email me at ben@benpughcoaching.com.
.com.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Courtney, as always, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks, man.
See y'all
Bye.
next time.